What we found was 1 in 2 mothers, that's 49% of mothers, reported experiencing discrimination in the workplace at some time during their pregnancy, parental leave, or on return to work. They were mothers from all walks of life. No sector was immune. The survey reported that the discrimination took many forms, from negative and demeaning attitudes right through to dismissal, and in some situations worse. But what was most surprising and indeed distressing was that the discriminating attitudes and behaviours were not just in the purview of men. Women too, some of them with children, were often guilty of these practices. Relating her experience, one woman told me, she said, "My direct manager, who was a female, told me that I needed to decide what I wanted. Did I want a family or a role in the company?" She said, "You can't have both." Our research is clear. Discrimination directly impacts on women's workforce retention. And just to give you some facts and figures from our research on that, nearly 1/3 of mothers who experienced discrimination at some point either looked for another job or resigned. That's 1/3. Mothers who experienced discrimination during pregnancy were less likely to return to their job or indeed return to the workforce at all. In fact, 1 in 5 mothers indicated that they were made redundant, restructured, dismissed, or had their contract not renewed because of their pregnancy when they requested or took parental leave or when they returned to work. And just looking at this leakage of female talent from the labour market, 22% of women who were discriminated against did not return to the workforce, and 14% who were not discriminated against, so it's almost twice that level. The survey found that the large majority of mothers, and that's 90% of mothers who experienced discrimination, did not make a formal complaint. Very, very low reporting rates. They suffered in silence. Many feared victimisation and being labelled a troublemaker. As I sat there listening to the stories over the last 9 months, I resolved that I would never be that manager who tells her pregnant worker that she must choose between having a family and a career. Indeed, I wouldn't want to work in an organisation that allowed such attitudes and behaviours to persist. So whilst my experience of pregnancy and work was indeed a positive one, it doesn't have to be unique. Just as I've learnt, work and care do not have to sit at opposite ends of a hard choice. We can do both, and when we're supported in this choice, that's when we all flourish, individuals and organisations alike.
For the first time, we have hard evidence on the extent and forms of discrimination being experienced by pregnant women and parents returning to work from parental leave. And for the first time, we have practical recommendations to address this discrimination, as well as leading practices and strategies to support pregnant employees and men and women returning from parental leave. It is clear that we need to provide more education, advice and support to employers. The Australian Government is firmly committed to strengthening women's economic participation, strengthening workplaces and communities, and strengthening the economy. That is why I am proud to announce today that the Government will provide funding of $150,000 through the Women's Leadership and Development Strategy to the Australian Human Rights Commission to develop a practical resource outlining employers' legal obligations, employees' rights, and leading strategies on how to best manage and support working parents through pregnancy, parental leave, and returning to work. Importantly, the resource will be developed following in-depth consultation with parents, employers, government, and other key stakeholders.